What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the Blue River Bowhunting Podcast, episode 51. Got a pretty cool episode lined up tonight. Jake Wilkins from Exact Archery. I shot my buck this year with one of his broadheads, and we'll definitely get all that covered here in a little bit. But what's up, Zach? Or not Zach. What's up, Jake? Sorry.
Hey man, how you doing?
Not too bad, man, for a Thursday night. It's kind of my Friday. I don't have to work tomorrow, so it's a pretty good night. Probably watch some football here coming up.
Absolutely. Sounded like before we got going on this, sounded like you were going to head down to Kentucky, but those plans maybe fell through. So maybe you could sleep in for once this fall.
Right. Or I might just say screw it and throw the shotgun on my shoulder and go shoot some ducks in the morning by myself.
Hey, there you go. There you go.
But for somebody that doesn't know you, Jake, introduce yourself a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I appreciate you having me on the show here, Brett, and on the
Absolutely.
podcast. And I'm Jake Wilkins. I grew up in north central Nebraska, small town of Ainsworth. Kind of through my job and through my work experiences, I've had the opportunity to travel to northern Indiana, kind of your way, Brett, and then lived in northeast Iowa for about a year and a half, or about 3.5 years, and then been able to get back here to Nebraska and live in Columbus, Nebraska currently.
That's awesome, man. You went through all the Midwest there, Nebraska, Iowa, Indiana. I can't wait to get out to Iowa here in a couple of years. I've been doing my whole preference points thing, so I think it says the first year I'm able to draw is like 2028 or something.
And you want to talk about some incredible public land hunting? Iowa is just absolutely fantastic. I've never sat and seen more 150-inch deer in my life than I did in Iowa. It was like boom, boom, boom. I mean, all over the place. So once you get preference points built up, it's definitely worth it.
Oh, I can't wait. It seems like it's grown so much bigger over there in the last few years. I don't know
Mhm.
what it was that Iowa made Iowa explode. I don't know if it was like, Don and Candy Kiski that made it explode, Realtree, or just people going out there and shooting absolute giants. But that state is kind of like the big leagues for whitetail hunters, in my opinion.
Yeah, absolutely. I think all these TV shows and stuff, I mean, whether you look at anywhere in the Midwest, I think bow hunting continues to grow in popularity across the whole Midwest just because of this length of the season and people can get out at different times and stuff. Really, I think Iowa has really become kind of the poster child for big bucks.
Absolutely. So I kind of start the podcast the same way every week with the guests. How did you get started in hunting in the outdoors?
Absolutely. So I guess I was probably not the most conventional hunter growing up. So I grew up on a family farm. My dad was not a huge hunter, but the one thing that he did instill in me is kind of a hard work ethic. So whether it's chasing deer or doing any of that sort of stuff, I continued to, probably work a little bit harder at it than maybe I would otherwise. But so I grew up just hunting with my rifle, shotgun, just here and there a little bit. And then when I was in the fourth grade, my best friend Zach Welch, who's currently in Alaska right now and doing all these sorts of adventures and hunting all over that state. He got me introduced to bow hunting. Him and his dad kind of got me to got me a bow, got me started, and we just started hunting a little bit here and there and everything. And when I was 14 years old, about 2 years after I got my first bow, I went out and I hung a stand by myself at my grandparents, and my little brother was with me, and it was like October 30th, and there was this little buck that came right down the trail, and my brother was with me, and I shot it. After I shot it, it dropped right there, and me and my brother were high fiving. My brother was like 8 years old at the time, and it was just like a great experience. So then I kind of got hooked ever after that, and it's been one thing led to another, and have really loved the outdoors, have really enjoyed bow hunting, and kind of led me into what we'll talk about later in the show is me starting an archery business and starting a broadhead business.
Is there any type of any other kind of hunting that you get into besides deer hunting?
Yeah, so I just got into when I was in college. I started doing a little bit of duck hunting. Um, I do quite a bit of waterfowl now hunting, and being in kind of that north central part of Nebraska. I'm sure you guys can probably attest to this, but it seems like ducks have continued to shift their pattern west as we go, and so I got pictures I can show you. But we had a 7-man limit here over Thanksgiving that we shot ducks, and tons of geese in our area too. So it's kind of that Platte River in Nebraska is kind of waterfowl central, but really just deer and ducks and geese in the wintertime. And between that and helping out my wife out with our kids, that's about all I have time for.
Absolutely, I know exactly how you feel on that. Yeah, waterfowl. Seem I didn't really get introduced to waterfowl until I went to college, and my professor was a huge waterfowl guy, and got some of us involved in it. And there was a few years where that's all I wanted to do was duck hunting, but it still doesn't scratch that itch like chasing big deer in the Midwest for me.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, I would almost call it like I personally am not a very patient guy, but I'll sit in a stand for a really long time. But like if it comes to like pheasant hunting or anything like that, like I'll do that. But I just love it seeing ducks, geese come in. I mean, it gives me similar types of adrenaline that when you see a nice buck come out of the woods.
Oh, absolutely. So let's talk about hunting Nebraska. Talk about some of the terrain that you're hunting, the terrain features, and maybe some of the public land opportunities that you get out there in Nebraska.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I would say the biggest thing about Nebraska for somebody who's never hunted here or never seen Nebraska is it's kind of crazy, but from the Missouri River, which separates Nebraska and Iowa, to the panhandle of Nebraska, there are 7 different ecosystems. So there is as much change in land from the Nebraska eastern edge of the border to the western edge of the border as there is from Iowa all the way to the East Coast. So I mean, you've got
Wow.
all different types of terrain. Primarily, the 2 deer species that we have here in the state of Nebraska are whitetails and muleys. So you get you get in western Nebraska, and you'll see all these hunting videos of guys shooting these massive mule deer. But in the eastern part of the state, you've got more timber, more woods, more draws, more canyons and stuff that you've got more rivers that you can hunt on, and that really allows for some really good white-tailed deer hunting. And I wouldn't say probably in the state of Nebraska we have as much like timber and that sort of stuff. It's more of like it's a lot of cornfields. When people think of Nebraska, they think of tons of cornfields. So
Right.
like before the combines roll and people take out corn, I mean, there's a lot of cover for deer. But once
Mhm.
they do that, a lot of those deer move into draws, move into wooded areas. And kind of as you move further west, the into the sandhills and that area, you tend to see a lot of big mule deer kind of start herding up towards the end of November, first part of December, and you'll see big bucks actually just start to herd together, and they'll just kind of move in packs in kind of the western part of Nebraska and out in the sandhills and stuff. But spot and stock out there is some of the best spot and stock I feel like if you look at like Kansas, Nebraska, any of those places, and probably the accessibility on some of those public areas there's just a lot of opportunity, especially as you work west into Nebraska in the public area. Now, if you work in kind of that east central Nebraska as well, the Nebraska Game and Parks has done a pretty good job of allowing and setting aside some areas for some public land. And I would definitely say, from a bow hunter's perspective, there is a lot of opportunity early season. So our rifle season doesn't start until that first full week of November. So if somebody can come out here and hunt some public land in that October when the first start of the rut's starting, there's definitely quite a bit of opportunity as deer are kind of cruising from one place to another. It seems like a lot of public land is always nestled between quite a bit of private land. So I mean, there's not a ton of people who hunt it. But really what the opportunity is, if you want to hunt a couple different species of animals, where I grew up, you go north of town, it's whitetails. Where you go south of town, it's mule deer. And so like it's kind of a cool opportunity to see a couple different species, and depending on what you're looking for a hunt and what challenge you want, Nebraska offers a lot of different opportunities that way.
That's awesome. So is it like say I wanted to come out there and do exactly what you're talking about, chase muleys and whitetails? Is it something that I have to put in for prior to season or anything like that, or a draw system, or is it can I just come buy over counter tag and go at it?
So it's kind of a little known secret. I don't know. It probably won't be after this podcast gets out, but the getting a getting a permit here in the state of Nebraska is one of the easiest states in the whole Midwest to get one. You can just come get a permit over the counter, and we're actually one of the cheapest out of state permits that you can buy in the whole Midwest. I think for an out of state permit, it's like $250. Don't quote me on that, but it's pretty inexpensive,
Yeah.
especially since you don't have to have any points or anything like that. And you can actually get a statewide deer permit. So say that you wanted to hang up some tree stands and, some public areas or whatever, and then you wanted to spot and stock, some other areas. You've got the opportunity. You're not locked into just mule deer or whitetails if you come out and hunt.
That's awesome. What about like limits as far as like bucks? How many bucks can you kill in Nebraska?
So in the state, you can kill two deer or you can kill two bucks.
Hmm.
And right now, sometimes they'll do like bonus tags for whitetail does. Usually they won't have a bonus tag for any mule deer does, but really, I mean, if you look at it from an overall cost perspective, I know that there were a couple of units this year that had two bonus whitetail doe tags with the buck tag. So in that, you could buy, two buck tags and you could kill, six deer on those two tags.
That's awesome. It sounds like a pretty good deal to come out there then.
Yeah. I would say the one thing is like one thing that I noticed this year is it seemed like deer numbers were down a little bit. We just come off of the driest year we've ever seen out here in Nebraska. Like there are places out here that for the past 120 years they have kept records of total rainfall, and this year was like the least amount. Like there's places in Nebraska that have got 3 inches of rain all year long. Like I mean, it's just really really dry. And I think one thing is too is some people are coming in and leasing out some different ground. So
Hmm.
places where used to see 10 different deer hunters on that piece of property, it's getting leased out now, and now it's only seeing one. So I think the numbers are down because of that, and maybe some of these older bucks. I guess I didn't, as I was sitting and seeing some of these other areas, I really didn't have the opportunity to see very many mature bucks this year. When I was sitting, I saw a lot of 3 and 4 year old, but no 5 or 6 year old bucks.
It sounds kind of like the year I had last year, prior to tagging out there in the last week of October. Which, if I could go back, I may have changed some things. I may not have shot him if I knew what I knew after I shot him. But I wasn't seeing a whole lot of mature bucks or even shooters, or even on camera. I wouldn't have. I mean, I had deer here and there that would. I mean, some people would probably give an arm and a leg to shoot, but I
Mm-hmm.
wasn't really seeing them during daylight. Just wasn't having many opportunities. And this year was like the total opposite. Saw bucks, especially that first week in November. I don't know if it was just the rut and everything was moving, but I saw a ton of deer anybody would kill to shoot for sure. I don't know what the difference in the years was, because I probably put more time in a stand last year than I did this year. But sometimes it's just like that. Sometimes you have a really good year and see a bunch of stuff, and the next year you don't see nothing.
I know, and I talked to a lot of guys in my area, and it's kind of been weird. So we transitioned. We moved from Northeast Iowa in like the first week of July. So I'm kind of going back through like residency and some of that sort of stuff, and I was seeing if there was any way where I could keep like residency in Iowa and
Right.
Nebraska at the same time, so I didn't have to do my preference points and stuff. So anyway, it was kind of a weird deal, and then we just had a baby too, so it was like all this stuff happening, and I just didn't get in the stand as much as I wanted to this year. And we still have a little bit of time left, but really the thing behind it is it just seems like the deer numbers are potentially down this year, and I don't know if part of that was just due to the dry weather or what it was, but well, I guess we'll see. I got some really nice trail camera pictures, but it just didn't seem like much was moving during the day or twilight.
Yeah. What about private property out there? Is that something that you hunt quite a bit? Is private, or do you hunt some of the public as well?
Yeah, so I've been really fortunate. Our family, we own some ground in northeast or north central Nebraska, and I do quite a bit of private hunting out here, and I would say a lot of opportunities are probably in some private ground out here. If somebody's potentially looking to get a lease or whatever, there's a lot of opportunities in the state of Nebraska. There's some guys that are willing to lease some ground, and there's a lot of guys from Arkansas and Missouri and some of those places that come up here, lease a piece of ground, and then end up doing it. But I actually did hunt quite a bit of private ground, but then also some public ground there, kind of around the border, some of our ground as well. And I would say if you can hit that early season of the public ground, it just makes a huge difference before rifle season, because there's just a lot of pressure. And I know probably like you see out there, Brett, I mean,
Yeah.
there's a lot of pressure that happens during rifle season out here out west.
Absolutely, for sure. Um, so when you talked about probably having more success early season out there, when exactly does your archery season come in there?
So September 1st, it opens here. And so it's like it used to be September 5th, 15th, I believe. And it's kind of interesting. So there's quite a few amount of elk that are moving in from like Yellowstone, that area. And there's a lot of elk that have kind of moved down that way. And that season opens September 1st, too. And it almost seems like some of the elk will tend to run off some of the big bucks while a lot of corn's still in. But I would say, if you really wanted to hit the sweet spot of like when to really start hunting, and this is kind of what I do anyway, is coming out that first, second week of October and being out here right as the peak of the rut, or just as the rut's starting to take off a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
Personally, I don't like hunting those first couple weeks in September, but there are some guys that are able to kill some deer in velvet out here, which is pretty cool.
Absolutely. I'm still searching for that first velvet buck. I went with some guys to Kentucky for their opener this year. This was like their 11th year in a row going or something. Actually didn't buy a tag. I just went to film Adam, and I think next year I'm going to buy a tag. I got that velvet frenzy. I'm trying to kill one with velvet and put it on the wall with these guys behind me.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Yeah, my buddy's dad, who I kind of told you got me into bow hunting. I mean, he's killed quite a few deer in velvet, and I've always wanted to kill one in velvet. So I guess I'm just gonna have to buck up and go September, that first part of September, before they lose it.
Is it a heat thing for you? You don't like hunting in the hotter temperatures?
Eat some mosquitoes, man. And I know that you guys in the South and West are probably gonna be like, man, that guy from Nebraska, what's he talking about? But like, I don't know. It's the mosquitoes. It's all that sort of stuff, and just like getting your meat cooled down quick.
Yeah.
It's like, I don't know. Maybe it's just my personality, but I'm like, I want it in my garage where it's like 30 degrees a night, and it can cool down that meat, and I can butcher it the next day.
No, I'm with you for sure. That was a whole nother adventure for me doing the Kentucky thing. Wasn't hot as it had been in years past. I think it was in like the low 80s, mid 80s. Definitely some of the hottest hunting I've ever been. I mean, we saddle hunted. Me and Adam saddle hunted while we were there, and I remember one afternoon we hiked way back up in there, and time we got up in ours, I was completely like just soaking wet,
Hmm.
and it was just a whole nother ball game for me. But it was fun. Um, just like I was telling you before we hit record, it was a change of scenery. It was a trip. We were there for like 5 or 6 days in a campground. They had things going on in the campground because it was Labor Day weekend. They had cornhole tournaments and all this going on. So there was a little bit of a party aspect, a little bit with it too, that made it fun. But just a change of scenery is something nice. I might have to talk to a couple of these guys about this Nebraska thing because the more you keep explaining it to me, the better it sounds.
Absolutely. Well, like I said, it's kind of a hidden secret, and probably when this podcast gets out, everybody, all my buddies back here in Nebraska, are gonna be like, "Jake, you son of a gun! You shared all these secrets with all these guys that are gonna want to come and hunt Nebraska now."
So, what do you do? I know you talked about some trail cams. What exactly do you do in the off season to scout these properties that you're hunting?
Yeah, that's a good question. So I guess, I'm kind of rethinking my strategy now that I've kind of moved back to a different area in Nebraska. And, I've got a couple of these different properties that I'm looking at really scouting pretty intensely this year. But I would say one of the things that I tend to do is we've got some fruit trees out here that we've intentionally had on the property to kind of bring in some deer and that sort of stuff. I would say probably one of the biggest challenges we have here in the state of Nebraska is deer just have such an abundant food source in so many different places because like when people think of like Casey's gas stations and like cornfields, that's like what we have here. It's like that's all
Right.
we have. But there's just like so much opportunity for deer to like graze around and you'll see a nice buck standing out there and like in the middle of July or August or whatever. And the next week he'll be like 2 miles away, like in a different field. So I guess just patterning deer is probably one of the more challenging things to do early season for deer. Unless you've got like test plots or you've got any type of food plot type of area that you've got that deer bedding in. I would say one strategy that a lot of my buddies have used personally is like don't necessarily like pressure in where they're actually like sleeping at and all that stuff, bedding down at early on in the season because like just like that they can find a new bedding spot. Like there's tons of different areas where they can go bed at and they've got plenty of food, plenty of water everywhere. So I guess just the biggest thing is like setting up trail cameras on well-traveled trails and just making sure that like what you're minimizing how many times that you're actually exposed to like going in there and checking your trail cams and all that sort of stuff because I believe that cell phone trail cams like if you don't have one once you have one you'll never have anything else because you're like
Right.
man this is unbelievable but it's such an opportunity for people to just set it there, get your pictures, and just leave it. Especially in like early August, end of July, early August, first part of September, because deer tend to travel in that last like half hour of light in that time anyway. So you just don't want to bump them too much.
Absolutely. When you set your trail cameras up in some of these areas, what exactly are you looking for? Are you putting your cell cams in these close to the bedding area, knowing that you don't want to get too close to it, and you can kind of monitoring it from afar? Or is it something where you're putting a camera in a transition area or on the food source? What exactly? How are you setting these trail cams in the off season?
I would say kind of a transition area. That's a really good question, Brett, because like I haven't mastered it. By no means am I a master at it. So like if
Right.
anybody's got any strategies that you'd want to throw out there, I'm all ears. But really, I mean, I think between the kind of food plot where they're grazing at, their food source to where their bedding area is, I would say, in a lot of cases, let's say it's a half mile between where they're bedding and where they're eating at, or where they're bedding at and where they're eating at, and it's one of those things that like I would lean more towards like pushing it out towards where they're eating at than pulling it into where they're bedding at. So that's been my strategy on how I've went about it, right, wrong, or indifferent. Um, I just, like I said, I don't want to pressure them too much early season.
Oh, for sure. You talked about all these food sources that they have. What about water? Is water just a huge thing out there? Like where you could maybe dig yourself a pond or something like that on your property and it be a honey hole come September?
Yeah, that's a really good question. So it's actually kind of cool, and I don't know how many people understand this about Nebraska, but like we're over one of the largest aquifers in the whole world. And so there's a lot of like springs and water fed, and it's a Ogallala aquifer. So there's a lot of springs, there's a lot of creeks, a lot of rivers and that sort of stuff. And one thing where I grew up at, they've actually got like we call it the irrigation ditch, where they bring in water from like 60 miles away from this dam that they have, and then people irrigate their crops out of it and stuff. But literally, I mean, deer they're never within or never outside of, I would say, a mile of a really reliable water source. I would say later season, there's quite a bit of areas where they'll move into the canyons or move closer to the river or whatever. But really, that early season until I would say middle of September, first part of October, they've got so much abundant water source really close.
That's awesome. We for the last couple of years we've been in this one particular property that we have in Shelby County. We've been doing a micro plot or what we call a kill plot. It's not but 50 or 60 yards long and 30 or 40 yards wide. A very small thing that we till up some part of this old pasture and put it in, just kind of testing the water with it. And we actually dug like a little koi pond in it. We didn't obviously put any fish, but that's what we put in the ground and filled it with water. There was actually this little drainage ditch that runs through there, so we just kept taking buckets of water over there. And then, like you said, we had record drought this year too, and we were hunting it. I think it wasn't opening day of bow season, but it was close. It was probably late October. And I kind of just chuckled and elbowed him, and I said, "Look at that pond. There isn't any water in it. It's just this piece of plastic dug into the ground over there, But you could tell when we did have water in it, we had a camera on it. Man, they were absolutely hammering that water hole. Obviously, they had that little drainage ditch that came in there, but with all that clover and stuff that we planted and then having that little bitty water source right there, they were hammering it. They had the dirt all, matted down all around it from stomping it, and you could see trails coming from every which direction to this little watering hole because it's like an overgrown pasture. It was kind of cool to see that and kind of build a mini habitat, so to speak, but man, I think this is our third or fourth year hunting this property. Big bucks all summer long. It's like a summer hangout I don't know if they like bedding in there and they have like crosswinds there and it's not real, it's kind of open for them when it's hot or whatever, but huge bucks, man, in there all summer long. And it seems like September 1st, there's just somebody flips a switch and they're all gone. We don't see anything besides does the rest of the year there. Yeah, even during the rut. I mean, he had an opportunity. My buddy Ryan had an opportunity there last year. He missed with a bow. I think the last weekend in October. But you would think, I mean, this place looks incredible. It would look like something that maybe you're hunting out west compared to what we're used to hunting here. Mm-hmm. You would think that we would have some rut activity in there, but just not the case. I'm not really sure why. It's a huge question mark for us, but definitely want to get it done there one of these days because we put so much time into that place. But it'll pay off one of these days, I'm sure.
Oh, for sure. And it sounds like you guys are doing all the right stuff. I mean, eventually hard work and preparation is going to hit success. I mean, you're going to hit the crossroads there. And like you said, I mean, at some point, especially with historic drought, I don't know what we can learn from this year just because of like the patterns I felt like personally were all screwed up and deer were, deer were doing crazy stuff during the day that they usually do at night, and it was really hot at night. So I don't know. I really don't know what we can take away from last year.
Yeah, and I think last year, I don't know about out where you're at, but here I think last year was colder during the majority of our deer season than it has been this year. I mean, what are we on? It's December 8th, and it's like 50 degrees here. I mean, it is raining, but usually you think of December Indiana deer hunting, you're talking, single digits. You're usually really cold, even during we had like one weekend, I think it might have even been opening weekend of gun here that was really cold, but it wasn't even that cold. I would say a low in the 20s, so that's manageable as a hunter for the most part. But, normally you see a huge cold snap there at the end of November going into December here, and we just haven't seen it here yet.
We've been pretty warm here, and we did hit a cold snap right during rifle season,
Mm-hmm.
and it drove everything. It snapped pretty hard. I mean, it was down in like the single digits, and with like negatives with wind chill and stuff. So you're right, though. It's been historically warm, and like I'm looking outside right now, and it's 28 degrees and raining, and a lot of times this would be snow.
Right. So let's talk about that rut slash gun season there in Nebraska. What would you say the peak rut for you guys in Nebraska hits?
I would say it's that second week in November, first to second week in November.
Mm-hmm.
This year it seemed a little bit earlier. There was a lot more rutting activity, probably that last week of October. But the thing of it is that the problem, maybe I don't know if it's a problem or not, but the it seems like all the states around us move gun back into like Thanksgiving time, that sort of stuff. And I think one of the things that why we don't see as many mature deer out this way, and we don't have as good a management maybe, is like the first or second week of rut. I mean, we've got kind of the Orange Army coming out, and you've got a lot of young bucks. I feel like that are just cruising and they just get shot. So I think personally, and somebody's getting paid way more than me to make these decisions, but I'm just saying if we were able to move our gun season back by like 2 weeks into like after Thanksgiving time frame, very similar to like when shotgun is in Iowa and that sort of stuff, I think we would see continual more big bucks, and our breeding cycle would be a lot better just because those big bucks would have the opportunity to breed before they get killed and in the peak of rut. So I would just say, the thing of it is, if you're a rifle hunter, Nebraska is, I was talking to one of my buddies who's in Kansas, and he's like, yeah, like 10 years ago, we didn't have any out of state hunters coming in and hunting out here, but now we've got a ton of people coming in and hunting out here. So the secret's kind of out. And so with probably more out of state pressure, we're going to continue to see in the next 4 or 5 years. I think in order for us to manage some of these things, I think we need to push our season back, which would also allow more opportunity for some bow hunters if they're coming out in that peak rut time, get some really good action and have some nice encounters with deer early.
How long does your gun season last?
So it's 2 weeks. It's right at, I believe it's actually like 15 days. So it's like
Mm-hmm.
a Saturday, or actually no,
Like 2 weeks, 3 weekends?
no, it's actually okay. So it opens on a Saturday and closes on the next Sunday. So it's actually 8 days. I
Okay.
apologize. Yeah. So it's about 8 days. And it's like, I think this year was like November 7th through the 15th or something like that. So that's about when it is. I wouldn't be 100% sure on those dates, but that's about usually when it is.
Ours hit, I think it's always the second Saturday in November, maybe the third Saturday. I may have that. No, I think it's the second Saturday. Either way, it
Mm-hmm.
comes in on a Saturday, and it's in 2 weeks, 3 weekends. We closed that Sunday of Thanksgiving weekend, I believe. Um, but for me, for Indiana, I think shortening our gun season would be beneficial for us. We're struggling, and some people may give me shit for this. I don't care. I think our deer herd in Indiana is struggling. Personally, where I'm at, it's took a huge hit from EHD along the river. You don't see numbers like you used to. And then you have and nothing. There's nothing wrong with what some of these guys do. Just not some people have different, things they want to do during deer season, and they shoot the first year and a half, 2-year-old that comes in, or they shoot a bunch of does. Like my neighbor Adam, who sometimes comes on here and co-hosts with me, he has a property, and he's a trail camera mania. Like he's got 50 trail cameras in this one woods, and he sees like 4 does the whole year, and I'm talking about the same 4 deer, and he's like, we're not shooting any does over here. I'm like, yeah, I wouldn't shoot any does over there either, just because of the population's so down. When he said that any other time for the past 15 to 20 years, he could take anybody in there that maybe was struggling to get on a deer, go in there and take a doe or something like that. But I think shortening the gun season would help our population. Like there was counties in southern Indiana where you could shoot 8 does. And now that number pretty much statewide is high. The highest it gets is 2. So if that tells you anything about our deer population, it's way down. So I think we should shrink our gun season down to maybe like a week, maybe like spread it out over 2 weekends. Like, hey, it's just Saturday, Sunday this weekend, Saturday, Sunday the next weekend, or something like that, and help our deer population out and get it back up there, because I feel you said that you had people in Kansas saying they had a lot of out-of-state hunters and all that kind of stuff. I feel like Indiana is probably getting some of that now too, from the Dustin Huff buck there in southern Indiana from last year, shooting the biggest deer ever killed in the United States. It's like that brings attention to your state. They jacked the price up on some of the licensing. I held a public land deer camp in southern Indiana this year, and had a lot of people come from out of state. And just to shoot a buck with a bow was $250, and if you wanted to buy like the bundle like I do, 1 buck 2 does, it's like $550.
Wow.
Which is a pretty steep hike compared to, I don't know exactly what it was in the past. I know it wasn't over $500, I can tell you that. Mm-hmm. But I think shortening gun season can be beneficial for our deer herd. And maybe that's just my opinion because I'm such a big bow hunter. But I want, like we were talking about limits for Nebraska, you could shoot 2 bucks there. We can only shoot 1 buck here. So I think that's definitely helped our management as far as the quality of deer that you're getting. But I think shortening that gun season, I think brings even bigger bucks to the plate.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I agree. And I think it's kind of a juggling act too, right? I mean, these state agencies and stuff are trying to create increased revenue and keep, landowners happy and keep all these people happy. And so I'm not saying there's one right or wrong way. I'm just saying, like, I think the points that you bring up too, Brett, are really good about like, hey, what are some ways where we can get some opportunities to get this herd like back up to where we want? But like the general public's like, oh, the only thing deer are good for is hitting them coming through this wooded place. It's like, right. It's like there's just a lot of push and pull, I guess, from all different sides. So
for sure,
from a deer hunter's perspective, I wish that they would do certain things, and I wish we could get our herd like back built up a little bit. But right when I say that, we have something like you said, EHD come through and wipe out, 40% of the deer herd. And it's like, well, I wish we could have harvested a few more of those nice bucks that we found dead in a water hole.
Yeah, there was plenty found here by me, which makes my stomach hurt thinking about it. Talking about some traveling when it comes to deer hunting. Have you ever really traveled other than the states that you've lived in to do some deer hunting?
Yeah, so I haven't done a whole lot other than, I lived in Indiana for a little bit, and it was actually right in between right when I got out of college, and then right when I was doing kind of a training out there and stuff. So I never got to hunt Indiana. I wanted to really bad in kind of that northern part, but I did hunt Iowa, I guess, when I lived there as well, and did some public land hunting there. And like I said, Iowa is just personally, I think it's a gold mine. I met a guy there who they own some property in Iowa, but the public ground stuff is just unbelievable. I was out there and I saw multiple, 120-inch bucks. Like you would sit at night and it was exciting to like go sit in the tree stand because you're like, "Ooh, how many bucks am I going to see tonight?" Like I'm definitely going to see something. And as you work kind of that northeast corner of Iowa, there is quite a bit of good public ground up in like that Decorah, Iowa area. And it doesn't produce as many like big bucks as you would see like down in like southern Iowa, like south of Interstate 80, kind of towards that like Missouri, Missouri state line and stuff. But really, I mean, I did a little bit of hunting while I was up there, but you'd know that you'd see deer, like you'd see a bunch of deer. And like the thing that was crazy to me is like how, and this is probably the same way in Indiana too, but really like how tightly sat a group of deer can sit. Like if you got like 4 acres, like you might have like 30 deer just sit there, and like you might have two booner deer that they're like, "Oh yeah, he'll be there, he'll be there
Yeah.
next week." It's like in Nebraska, we never got that luxury when I grew up hunting. It was like, okay, the neighbor 5 miles away is probably going to see that deer tomorrow.
Right.
Um, so anyway, it's kind of a different mentality, but the one thing is like my best traveling, and I guess when I lived there, Iowa was just it was incredible. It was incredible to see the amount of deer that you saw, and I did a lot of hunting in kind of that October time frame, and that it was just really fun to get out in the stand and see a lot of deer.
What about you? Is there any states that you want to travel to? Maybe future plans.
Yeah. So my buddy, this isn't deer. Well, actually, it could be. So my buddy, he was at Kodiak Island here a couple weeks ago. The one who lives in Alaska, and he's got some crazy stories from that hunt. But he was hunting Coues deer,
Hmm.
and anyway, he was just saying how unbelievable that hunt was. So I'm going up to visit him and probably gonna hunt some black bears
Nice.
this next year in June, I think. And I might go up and do a Coues hunt with him at some point here. I don't know exactly. I need to see like what out of state, what I would need to do and everything. There's a couple other states I want to hit. South Dakota. So South Dakota is another one that's really, really solid. Probably very similar to Nebraska. Is like you've got whitetails, you got muleys, you got all that stuff. And there's just a lot of opportunities, I feel like, in South Dakota, and we're pretty close to it. I would love to get out west to like, I want to potentially go to like Idaho, Utah, somewhere like that, and kill a big muley. That'd be really fun to be able to do that. But I guess, the biggest thing for me is like, how do I, and it's been really cool too, and we'll talk about it in a little bit here, but like all the people I've met through this business that I've started too is like, they're like, "Oh man, you need to come out hunting out here. Or like I shot this deer with your broadhead or whatever." So it's like, I think that's going to open up a lot of opportunities to maybe go, you know, open up some other opportunities that maybe I'm not even thinking of right now.
Oh, absolutely. I can only imagine what it's like with a company like yours, because I just run a podcast, and the people that I've met and some of the trips that I've been invited to, I had Zach Sloan on from Midstate Outdoors last year talking about deer hunting. We talk after the show. Hey, let's trade a deer hunt for a turkey hunt. I go up to Michigan, kill a slammer of a turkey up there. He comes down here, didn't kill anything, but we became very, very good buddies. We talk almost every day, I feel like, through text messaging about what you're seeing and all that kind of stuff. it's opened up another opportunity. The guy I've had on the show, I'm going to be turkey hunting in West Virginia this spring, and we're doing it with bows. He shoots a longbow. I'm not using a longbow, but I'm going to use the old the old Matthews. But just those kind of connections that you can make through companies and podcasts and stuff is such a cool thing, man. It's some people don't get it because they haven't been in those shoes before. Because I've had people at work talking to me about it and stuff, and I'm telling them about all these opportunities that I had. And just like you're talking about Nebraska. Makes me want to go to Nebraska,
Come on out.
Don't tempt me because I might.
Absolutely. We might have to do a little trading around.
Yeah, there you go. But just that kind of connections that you can make through friends and acquaintances doing stuff like this is a never-ending process, if you ask me.
Absolutely. And what I've found too is, understanding that we're all in this together, right? I mean,
Right.
We're all out here to really enjoy the sport, enjoy, really being able to chase animals with bow and arrows is, kind of our heritage, right? I mean, it's like, it's kind of bred into us in a certain sense. And I think it's a lot more people are getting to enjoy it.
Absolutely. So everybody, I'm sure that's listening, you've heard it for, I don't know how many episodes I've done it now, but before the show even starts, you hear me do an ad read for Exact Archery, which is Jake's company, Exact Broadheads. He hit me. I don't remember how we met. Did we meet through TikTok?
It could have been TikTok, could have been Instagram. I think
it must
really
have been
remember.
TikTok then, because Ryan runs our Instagram account, but you hit me up, said, "Hey, how about would you think about shooting my broadheads this season?" Absolutely, let's do it. I don't have a certain company that, I mean, I love all kinds of different broadheads that I've shot, and I throw it in my quiver, shoot my buck on November 7th. He didn't run 30 yards. I'm not even joking. And the doe that I shot, I don't know, 4 days before that, she probably didn't run 30 yards. Unbelievable product so far that you got going here. Tell us exactly how it all started. How did you come into starting Exact Archery?
Yeah. So I remember when you texted me, you're like, I remember I got a text and you're like, "Oh, I killed a big buck," or whatever. And I remember like a couple days before you shot a doe too, and I'm like, "Oh man, that's awesome! I'm really glad you're having success with our products and stuff." So I guess I'll kind of just start from the beginning. So about 3 years ago, I was listening to the radio as I was heading out to my deer stand, and I heard an ad for Harry's razors, like, the Dollar Shave Club, that sort of stuff. And I'm like, wow, like, razors used to be really, really expensive, right? We had razors that were 30, 40, 50 bucks. Remember, they used to be in like a plastic case,
like
and
the Gillette stuff.
Gillette stuff was like in this plastic case in Walmart, and like you had to get somebody to open up the case or whatever.
Right.
And I feel like we've almost come to that point with broadheads. And so I thought to myself, I'm like, okay, well, like, why do broadheads have to be so expensive? Like, what is the reason behind it? And really, as I did some digging and that sort of stuff, I found out that like there's just a ton of margin in it for a lot of these big companies who are continually putting out these broadhead lines. And so when I started bow hunting, broadheads were pretty reasonable. You could get them for $25 for a 3-pack or whatever. And now they're getting to like $45, $50 for a 3-pack. And you're like, holy cow, it's kind of getting out of hand. So anyway, what I thought of is, I'm like, I need to find a manufacturer to see if they can get me a prototype. And so what I was using at the time was Slick Trick broadheads and Muzzy broadheads. And I'm like, I really love these products, but they're just continuing to get higher and higher priced. So what I ended up doing was I found a manufacturer in Germany that was building some of these broadheads and doing some of that sort of stuff. And I just started thinking to myself, like, hey, is there any way that you guys could like send me a couple prototypes? Like, I'd be willing to pay you to make them or whatever. So like, anyway, I'd sent this money out to this company that I, was just doing emails with. I'm like, okay, I'm never going to see this money again. Never going to see anything. And like, it wasn't a month later, and like, I get this package in the mail, and I'm like, what the heck is this? At the time, my wife was like, "What in the world is that?" I'm like, "Well, I hope it's not something that explodes in my face." But I opened it, and it's these prototypes of these broadheads that are now the Exact Broadhead, and I'm like, wow, like that's pretty cool. And then so anyway, I started shooting them, and I'm like, they fly awesome, they're great, high quality, durable. The one thing that I had on them was, they didn't have a solid like metal point on the end. But as I found out, blowing through ribs or whatever, they've worked really, really well. So anyway, fast forward to this year, I'm like, hey, you know what? I think I want to start selling these. And so anyway, I made a TikTok video, and I had never really been on TikTok before. I got 12,000 views, um, got like 1,100 orders of these broadheads. And so I called my manufacturer. Well, I had already stocked up on some, and I'm like, called my manufacturer. I'm like, hey, I'm going to need a heck of a lot more than what I've got right now. How soon can you get them to me? So they got them to me, and I package them all up, and I do it out of my office here and out of my garage. And, I print off the labels myself and do all that stuff. And, if you looked at the appearance of like how they come, I just package them in an envelope and everything. But
Mm-hmm.
the reason why I do that is like, I want to keep costs as low as possible for bow hunters. And like, there's really, I mean, we really don't care if somebody tries our product and like doesn't like it or whatever. We've got like a money back guarantee on some of our products. Like, if you don't like it in the first 30 days, send it back. We'll send you your money back. Like, we know that everyone's setup's a lot different,
Right.
and not just a little different, but a lot different. And so we're like, hey, if you guys don't like them, then don't continue to shoot them. But like, just because a broadhead is high priced doesn't mean that it's high quality, or just because a product or just because a broadhead is lower priced means it's lower quality. So we sell our products. We sell a 3-pack for $20 online, and we're really, I mean, if you look anywhere, we're one of the cheaper broadheads, or one of the least expensive broadheads on the market right now. And that was our mission. We wanted to create high quality broadheads at the lowest possible price for bow hunters, and we're taking out all of the middle guys that take a piece of that margin that you'd buy in a Cabela's or a Bass Pro Shop or anywhere like that. We take all that margin out, and we just give it right to the customer at the lowest possible price to them.
That's awesome. I can tell you one thing that really surprised me when I opened my packages for the first time, and this is kind of stupid, I guess, but how sharp they were. I was like, oh my God, I got to be careful putting this thing on my arrow. I'm going to saw my finger off, which it came in handy, man. I mean, I shot 2 different deer, and like I said, my buck that I shot him at 46 yards. And he didn't go very far. And I say he didn't go far. He didn't go but 30 yards, did a big mule kick when I got him, when I shot him. Got a lot of vitals in there. I clipped his heart, but it was mostly lung. But man, unbelievable. I was definitely praising you afterwards. You can kind of even see in the picture how much blood that I had, and I even cleaned some of it up because I didn't want a bunch of blood in my pictures. But I was telling everybody about Exact afterwards. I'm like, listen, this dude has a hell of a product. You're not paying that much money, because you could stack up on, 6 of them for $40, and you're good to. I mean, you should be good for a hot minute with 6 of them.
Exactly. And the thing is like, personally, as a bow hunter, it, like I said earlier on in the podcast, like, we're all in this together, right? I mean, we're all in this to enjoy bow hunting, and like, with just the way we're sitting today, like, I I personally, the one thing that I want to pride ourselves on as a company is like, we want to listen to our customers, and we want to deliver to them what's best for them. And I feel like some of these other companies, the bigger that they get, the further from the field and further from the customer that they are. So it's like, hey, if you got a problem, pick up the phone and like call me. Like, just let's talk through it. Let's see, hey, how can we make these products better? because eventually we want to move into more than just broadheads. We want to be in other types of stuff. But right
Right.
now, you know, being able to deliver that customer experience is really valuable to us.
I mean, I have a bow hunting podcast. I have everything I do in the outdoors besides maybe like duck hunting. I'm using a bow. So bow hunting is, it's my life. I take it very seriously. And to tell you that I will be shooting your broadheads going forward, should tell everybody listening exactly how much it means to me already.
Yeah. Well, you know what? I appreciate you being kind of a poster child, and I guess, you know, of those 1,100 orders, the funnest thing about it, Brett, is that you get messages from people all over the place. Like, we'll be sitting down, I'll be at a date with my wife, and like I'll get like text messages from guys being like, "Big buck down," like loved your broadheads, that sort of stuff. I'm like, that's just awesome right there.
Oh
Like we
yeah.
all want to be a part of something like bigger than ourselves, and we all want to be a part of something that's gonna like help other people inevitably. And like by being able to do this, you know, somebody asked me this once. They're like, would you sell your company if you got big enough or whatever? And I'm like, you know what? Honestly, I just really want to do what's best for bow hunters. I mean, at the end of the day, like that's what I want, and there's a reason why I'm starting this, and I appreciate all that you've done to help support our business too, Brett.
Absolutely, I'm going to be doing more and more going forward. I promise you that. So, what are your plans for Exact? Are you going to be throwing different models out there, maybe expandables, that type of thing, or are you pretty much going to stick to what you got?
So I guess right now I've always been a big believer of like be really good at what you do and what you're doing like right now, because like jack of all trade, master of none. I would say really the biggest thing is right now is we want to get our fixed blade, 4 blade, 100 grain broadhead like completely, like we want to get that out there to customers. And
Hmm.
then if there's a lot of need and desire for like expandable broadheads, the biggest thing that I've found with like expandable broadheads from a manufacturer's perspective is like because there's a lot more moving parts, like there's a lot more opportunity for things to go wrong. And the worst feeling in the world that I would have is like somebody hits a massive deer with our broadheads and then like a once in a lifetime buck, and then they're like, man, it was the broadhead's fault. Like it didn't
Right.
didn't do this, it didn't do that when it hit, all these sort of things. Where like if you're working with a fixed blade broadhead, there's a lot less that can go wrong. And I stick with what I shoot and what I personally use. And so we'll see kind of down the road where it all leads into. But like I said, I mean, we're not going to be for every bow hunter. We're not going to. There's some people that use expandables that, hey, we're not afraid to say, hey, stay where you're at. If that's what you love using, then that's fine. But we've got a lot of guys in like Arizona and stuff that use these for javelinas. Like if you're going to do a different hunt, if you're going to be shooting at 50, 70, 80 yards with these things, they fly awesome. Like, as good as a field point. So really, I think we just want to master what we're really good at right now. And then we'll maybe look at expanding our line moving forward.
I don't blame you whatsoever. I have honestly, I've never shot an expandable broadhead. For 18 plus years, I used a fixed blade Muzzy, and then I believe it was 2020 and 2021. I tried a hybrid of a fixed blade and an expandable. Had success with it, but there's just nothing like a fixed broadhead for me. Just like you said, there's more moving parts, more things can go wrong. One of the biggest bucks back here on my wall when I was had him in the garage skinning him out, I found an expandable, probably 3/4 of an inch from his spine, and I was thinking, how did this deer survive this?
Mm-hmm.
And it was just obviously maybe poor arrow placement somewhere in there, but you know, if I throw a Muzzy or an Exact 3/4 of an inch away from a big buck spine, I'm kind of hoping that I got some damage in there that's going to get the job done. You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely. And I would say a lot of guys who are switching over to us are, the biggest thing for me was like I probably only have like 4 friends that have bought bought these from me, because I'm like, I don't want it to be something where it's like, hey, your friends are just buying it, and like,
Right.
it's just that sort of stuff. Like, we've got a lot of these out in the market right now, and the feedback that we've got has just been really, really good. And so, like you said, I mean, if I hit an animal, like, even if it's not like dead on exactly where I want it to be, I want to know that, like, I'm going to have a humane kill with that. And I think our experience with the Exact Broadheads and our customers' experiences have said, absolutely, that's how we feel. Like, it's worked for us, I guess.
Definitely. One of the questions I had for you for the exact are, what have you learned? What's one of the things you've learned from your first, your first fall, being the owner of a broadhead company? Have you learned anything?
Yeah, well, there's a lot that I've learned over the last little bit here. You know, I guess the biggest thing is like, be thankful for everything that that you've got right now. And the thing that I've probably learned the most here is like, patience is something that you just have to be really, 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 really acquainted with when it comes to like, hey, this guy ordered this. I haven't seen anything like from him. Like, did it work good? Did it not? And then like literally just out of the blue someday be like, hey, I killed the biggest buck I've ever killed in my life. But I think probably just the biggest thing for me is like learning patience, because I'm just such an activator and like go, go, go all the time. Like, the biggest thing is like letting people like see a product, see how they like it. And honestly, we've got some negative feedback too. There's some guys that, shot it with like they've shot like a double scapula,
Mm-hmm.
a hog scapula. They shot into 2 hog scapulas, and they're like, well, the blade, it bent a little bit and that sort of stuff. And we're like, well, I mean, there's negative feedback that you get out there sometimes, and you can't take that too personally, because like that's one person's feedback. And like,
Right.
if I'm going to shoot into a block of concrete with anything, like,
It's probably gonna bend.
it's probably going to bend, it's probably going to break, it's probably going to do all that stuff. But like, I guess the biggest thing is like, take everything you get, make the product better, and take everything with a grain of salt, because there's some people that are, and like, you probably get it too on some of your videos and stuff. People
Oh,
are
you
like,
have no idea.
what are you doing? This is dumb. You just get these made from some foreigner, and you're just
Right.
trying to screw American jobs. It's just like all that stuff. And you got to pick through all that and say, hey, you know what? I'm going to move forward with this. I love this product. My customers love this product. We're just going to move forward.
That's awesome, man. Well, I hope everybody goes and checks out Exact Archery. Go check it out. Check his products out. Like he said, you're gonna get a 3-pack, 4 blades, $20. I don't think you can beat that with anything. And trust me when I say, from my experiences, you won't regret buying those. You'll be buying more, just like I'm going to be buying more for sure. But I appreciate you coming on and talking with me tonight and putting this all together. I know we've been talking about it for a while and just hadn't really pulled the trigger on it yet. But tell everybody where they can find you, and then tell everybody where they can find Exact Archery.
Yeah, so you can find me on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, and it'd be under Exact Archery. And then our website is exactarchery.com. That's EXACT archery.com. So check us out. Like I said, we've got a 30-day money back guarantee. I know, like, spring turkey, man, these things, like, everyone's really excited about them because you can shoot them long distance, and there's just a lot of people that like flinging arrows at turkeys. So if you wanting to try them out this spring yet, I would highly recommend you try them out. And like I said, we got a 30-day money back guarantee.
Absolutely. Hopefully, come that website, come about April 17th, there's another picture beside that deer with me with the big old long beard.
Yeah, absolutely. You can check out Brett's deer on there and some of our other customers. But yeah, you'll probably go out to West Virginia and kill a big old tom, or Michigan, or You're going to be all over the place. It sounds like you got
I
some
am.
exciting hunts lined up.
Absolutely. But if you're listening on the podcast, man, hit us with a rate and review. Review us. I haven't had anybody review us in a long time or rate us or whatever on Apple or Spotify or anything like that. I tell you what, the first 10, 15 people that give me a review on Apple or wherever, I'll send you a sticker and even put it in the comments if you want. Give me my email is all over when it comes to Blue River bow hunting. You can find us easily, message us. Give us a rate and review, and especially on the YouTube. We got 2 great videos out. We got Adam Bonowitz shooting a 130-inch deer on November 11th. We got Ryan Emmer shooting a 140-inch deer the very next day, both on video, both on our YouTube. Go check it out. Just support us in general. But you guys have a good rest of your week, and we'll see you again for episode 52. What's up?
Hey, if anybody rates and reviews you on this, I'll send them a free 3-pack of Exact Broadheads. So rate and review, and you got them coming your way.
That's awesome. So anybody that's an hour and 5 into this, you're going to hit a gold mine if you stay here the whole episode. Get you some free broadheads too. I highly appreciate that, buddy.
Hey, no problem.
But we'll be back again next week with episode 52. I believe we got Caitlin Armstrong coming back on next week. So we'll see you again next week.